church.
Hi, Billy.
It's good to see everybody today. I'm excited. I'm not normally preaching, but here I am. Amen.
You sure?
I sure am.
You need this one.
I think it's fine. Appreciate it. So we'll be continuing. I will be continuing with the series, The Good Life. And we are in Ecclesiastes. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We're going to work through verses 1 through 6. You've got plenty of time to find it in your Bibles. If you got the notes page, you're going to need that. If you don't have a pen, I would find one. I'm going to cover a lot of ground. There's going to be some stuff I think you may want to write down. Make sure you have everything ready. First, I wanted to say that I have been married for 18 wonderful years.
Praise the Lord.
And 8 others. For a total of 26. Chris and I, you know, when you put in 26 years like that, it's not smooth sailing. I am no day at the beach. I would lie if I didn't say that there were several times where we were very, very, very close to divorce. This little piece of history, the first time we were close to divorce, we weren't saved. We both got saved, and within 2 weeks had reconciled and didn't get divorced.
Amen.
The second time, she told me that she was pregnant with our 3rd kid, and knocked some sense into me as I realized who my God really was. And the 3rd time, we actually had to get a counselor involved. Sometimes you just need professional help to guide you through those things. You know what I mean? My ring is tattooed on. I told my wife when I got it tattooed on that if she died or left me, I would never do this again. She's the only wife I'll have. But there's a reason you wear the ring. The reason you wear the ring is to remind you that you took a vow. And you took a vow in front of God and family and friends, swearing that when the moment came, when you had all the reasons in the world to walk away, that you wouldn't. That's what the ring is for. You can have symbolism, you can attach things, but you need to look at that ring and remember the moment when you said, I swear I will not walk away, because at some point in your relationship, you will give each other a good enough reason to walk away, where all your friends and people will say, no, leave her, no, leave him. But you got to remember that's you who took that vow, right? So the 3rd time we were in counseling. God blessed us with such a wise counselor. And she told me something that I heard the English words. So I thought she was speaking French. I really got confused when she said to me, why don't you do what you love for a living and just learn how to live on that much money? To understand that, you have to understand that I'm a product of the 80s. Yeah, right? I'm a more kid. I know that the people who love me were trying to be encouraging, but what it was, when I came home with my first promotion, they said, that's awesome. How do you get your next promotion? When I bought my first house, they said, that's cute. When are you buying your next house? When I bought a nice car, they said, that's an awesome car. When are you getting a BMW? It was, they weren't being, they were trying to be encouraging. But that was the product I came out of. It had to be more of all of this, right? Well, in order to have more of all of this, you need to work and get that kind of money, right? So the money is what I thought I was the reward for my work. So my wife gets sick. We go from 2 incomes to 1 income. And I was a touring musician at the time, so I quit touring. I found a $9 an hour line cook job, which was the first job I could find. And we worked our way into it was miserable. I took whatever job would pay me the most. I thought that was my responsibility And I wound up at a job that I'm not going to mention. The point is that every day I went to work, they were taking little pieces of my soul, and I was letting them. And I can be kind of cynical sometimes to begin with. And when you put me in a situation where I'm always dealing with people who are at their worst, it wasn't gelling. And it started to change who I was. It started to make me a bad husband and a worse father, as I was looking at my kids, like instantly accusing them of lying and just going down this place. And I thought because they were the ones who were going to pay me the most money that was my responsibility to shoulder that burden. I was on that path. And I'm on that path when this counselor says to me, why don't you do what you love for a living and just learn how to live on that much money? Does that sound really weird to anybody else? Even still, when I kind of say it, there's a part of me that goes, what? What do you mean? What? Do you do what you love for a living and learn how do you get a bigger house when you're doing what you love for a living? How do you, whatever, it's just, and it took, like, it was a square peg in a round hole. I couldn't get the thought through my brain. It was so foreign of a concept, it might as well have been French. Then she asked me, when was the last time you were happy? And I said, oh, that's easy, before I had kids. Before I had kids, I had a little day job. I was a line cook. I was playing music on the weekends. I was married. We were happy. It had nothing to do with the kids. I love my kids. I'm only teasing about that. But it was before we had kids, and I was just doing this day job, and I got to play music on the weekends. She said, why don't you try to find... I'm actually using her as an example in a little bit. It's going to be worth it. So leave that over. I'm good at... Where was I? I got distracted by Gracie.
Happy before you had kids.
Happy before I had kids. So I love the kids. The idea was that I had a day job and I got to play music on the weekends. So I actually, with Chris, we sat down and tried to figure out a way to get me into a position where I could just have a day job and play music on the weekends. Well, the music on the weekends part was already taken care of. I'm not in a country or a rock band anymore. I run a worship team. And I'm delighted. I can't believe, we won't go into why, that's a whole other sermon. I just can't believe that I'm here. You'll have to understand that. I'll tell you about it anytime you want to know. I can't believe the journey that brought me to be a worship leader instead of the idiot that I was, wasting my talents on self-aggrandization, on me, trying to glorify myself. So we sat, my wife and I tried to figure out a way for me to get a job that I liked, that would be a day job that I could do, that would allow me to play music on the weekends, which is doing this. So I wound up banking. Does anybody know anything about what bankers actually do?
Take lots of breaks. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Not too far from it. No. What's funny, I expected at least one or two people to go, oh yeah, you guys do whatever. It's like nothing, no one. Well, that's what I do for a living, is banking. What's cool about that is it does allow me that day job vibe. What I didn't know about it is it would be everything I really like to do. It's all kinds of math, which is also what I love about music. It helps me to help people. Believe it or not, not all bankers are trying to take all of your, it's weird. A lot of them are, I can't lie. But, you know, I got into this banking thing, and it wound up being really, really great. I'm blessed, beyond measure, that I got to have my day job, and I got to be playing music on the weekends. The odd thing of this is, to tell you in full transparency, in order to accomplish that, we had to sacrifice everything to bankruptcy and start all over again. There's not a lot of bankers with a bankruptcy record. There's not a lot of guys involved in the SEC who are studying to be retirement counselors who have a bankruptcy recently on their record. But it was sort of like jumping out of a burning plane. But imagine trying to, you got to claw back. One of the things that had changed for Chris and I was the definition of the word need. I can feel the room get a little tighter when I said that. I'm glad you're all paying attention. But redefining the word need. Do you need a TV? Do you need a cell phone? Well, not in the most basic concept of survival, but when you don't have money, how are you going to pay for the car? Those are real questions that we face. What are you going to get rid of, cable or healthy food? Those are real decisions, man. Those are real decisions. Yeah. Bacon and mac and cheese and tang, let's go. So let's work our ways from the ground up on this one for a minute. If you've ever heard the term water, oxygen, food, time, and shelter. Ladies in apologetics, water, oxygen, food, time, and shelter. That is all you actually need to make it till next month. You have to have water, you have to have oxygen, you have to have food, you have to have time, and you have to have shelter. You need all of those things or you will die. It's a part of life, right? My little apologist thing won't allow me to not address abortion at this point. We're in the midst of a turmoil. I know it's political. It's okay if you disagree with me, but the science simply states that the only difference, what a zygote, if you know what a zygote is, it's the two-celled organism that begins life. Without going into more detail than that. The two-celled organism that begins life is called a zygote. The only things a zygote needs to become a fully mature person, adult, human, is water, oxygen, food, time, and shelter. It's the same thing we need to see next month. There's no difference once life is life. Those are the requirements. So if you take these requirements, water, oxygen, food, time, and shelter, where does TV fit into that? I'm not saying you shouldn't have a TV. I'm not, we are a greedy nation. If you work hard and you have the opportunity, get a nice TV if that's what you want. That's not what I'm saying. But where does it fall in the priorities? I had to redefine need. Do I need a big yard and a big house? Do I need to live in the nice neighborhood? Do I need to put myself in a position where I'm in competition to keep my grass green with my neighbors? Do I need that lifestyle? What do you need? What do you actually need to live? On another sidebar, this one's free. I'm going to make it as quick as I can. Since we're talking about apologetics, here's what you're going to write down. Irreducible complexity and flagellar motor. Irreducible complexity. Now we're going to talk about evolution for a minute, because I can't avoid it. I just couldn't get away from this. Irreducible complexity, flagellar motor. Those are two different things. Irreducible complexity means if it's any simpler, it no longer functions. The one they usually use is a mousetrap, right? You have the spring here, the hammer that does all the work, the hold down bar that keeps it together, the platform, and the catch. If you take any one of these pieces away, it's no longer a mousetrap. Did we get that part so far? Anybody? Just nod, help me out. So if you take any piece of this away, it's no threat to the mouse at all. Right? Any one of those pieces. That's called irreducible complexity. You can't make it any simpler than that and have it still be something. Right? The flagellar motor is made up of several parts. Sorry, this one and then this one. You have the motor, the hook, the filament. The flagellar motor, what it is, it's a bacteria projection system. It's how a bacteria, a single-cell organism, scoots around. Not all of them do it this way, but these ones do. They scoot around, right? Without any one of these pieces, the motor, hook, the filament, the plasma membrane, they have a rotor and a rod that makes it. There's about 7 pieces that make this little flagellar motor, this microscopic bacterial flagellar motor. That's an actual picture of one there. Gorgeous. Without any one of those pieces, it no longer works. It isn't anything. It's irreducibly complex. You can't make it any smaller than that and have it function. There can't be any one of those parts missing and have it not be there. So tell me, how did that evolve? Ladies and gentlemen, have that conversation with your evolution friends. That one's free. All right, now to the sermon. Where were we? Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verses, Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verses 1 through 6. We ready? Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures. Yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle. For you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. Thank you so much for clearing that up. Advice that sounds good. Reverse that. Advice that is good frequently doesn't make any sense to you when you hear it. That's how far off track you are. That's how far off track I was when I was delivered the advice that changed my life. I was literally so far off track that I couldn't fathom the concept of living on less money. Why would anybody do that? To be happy, to love what you do, to not kill yourself, to make the decision. But the concept was so far out of my brain. Okay, let's say, you've never seen a car. Everybody harken back to the days of old. Before there were cars, right? And you're working your life on a farm with a horse. And then somebody brings you Sue's Honda Civic. I like her Honda Civic a lot. Sue's Honda, so bam, in the middle of your life drops this Honda Civic. If you wanted it to go, you might go to the front of this car and try and shove hay into the grill of the car. It's not going to work, is it? Right? So then somebody comes along and says, no, take some gasoline and put it in the back of the car. So you think to yourself, I'm going to take this extraordinarily flammable liquid and pour it into a tank that I'm going to sit on top of, and it's going to have controlled explosions, and you want me to use that to go back and forth. It would seem like lunacy. Are you with me on my metaphor so far? You see it? If you keep shoving hay in the front, the car's never going to go anywhere. So when they say, hey, you're doing it all wrong, you got to put the gas in the back, you're like, that's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You might want to grab somebody that you know and love, strong in faith, and say, this is the really dumb advice that I just got. Is the advice dumb, or am I that far off course? I was that far off course. So to verse 1, the ESV puts it this way. You'll see. The ESV says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. And in the NIV, it says, ship your grain across the sea after many days, you may receive a return. I have a really hard time thinking that that's the same verse. Nobody else, just me. All right. It is. Those are both translations of verse 1. In the earlier part, the cast your bread upon the waters, Spurgeon, if you know him, is a preacher. He's fantastic. You read, get yourself involved with some Spurgeon, you'll love it. He says, hoard not thy bread, for if thou dost, so if you do, it will mildew. It will be of no use. Cast it on the water, scatter it around, give it to unworthy men if need be. Ship your grain across the sea after many days, you may receive a return. So I get a job as a banker. I'm going to jump around a bit on you guys. I get a job as a banker. I started learning how money actually worked. And it's kind of the same as if you just suddenly got a job as a mechanic and started learning how a car worked. You're like, oh. You know, when you turn the wrenches and get involved in the work, you're like, oh, I didn't know this is how that. I feel the same way about banking. I said, oh, that's how that works. I had no idea what I didn't know. It's crazy, but I love the math. I really, really do. One of the things that I learned is something called money risk. Some people call it inflation. Who's ever heard the term inflation? Who never raises their hand in church? The term inflation. It's about your money not being worth as much next year as it is worth this year, right? So I think we all sort of carry that with us. So I jumped on Excel and I made this, a little spreadsheet that does the work for me. What I want you to see is that if you start out with $1,000, next year it's only going to be worth $970. Your $1,000 right now, next year, will only buy $970 worth of stuff. Whatever you could buy for $1,000 today, next year, you'll only be able to buy $970 worth of that. In 3 years, it'll be $915. In 5 years, $862. In 10 years, this is your same $1,000. This is how much it's actually worth. Right? On the right-hand side, it says dollar value after. So this is how much money you would need to have to buy something for $1,000 still. Okay? So this music stand right here, it's worth $1,000. Okay? Next year, if I want to buy one, it's worth $1,030 new. If I want to buy one the year after that, I need $1,092. After 5 years, $1,159. After 10 years, I need $1,300. This thing, do you see how your money just naturally becomes less? The money that's sitting in your mattress that you're not doing anything with is just decreasing in value. Cast your bread on the water. Give it to people who aren't even deserving of it. Holding on to it gets you nowhere. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a savings account. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be prepared for a rainy day. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of things and be responsible. What I'm saying is, don't hold on to everything. It's of no value. It's just going to be worth less. Give it to somebody now when it makes a difference. Quick, before you got to pay $1,300 for it, we'll buy it for them for $1,000. Quick, before you have to pay $13 for it, buy it for them for $10. It doesn't matter if it's cash. It doesn't matter if it's tomatoes. And it doesn't matter if it's luck. Holding on to it gets you nowhere. Right? Verse number 2, invest in 7 ventures. Yes, 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. There's no perfect number. There's no exact plan for everybody that works for everybody all the time. Always. Right? The idea here, what they're getting at, is that it's not a goal, it's an exercise. Diversification is an exercise. You start with 1, and then you try 2. Once you got 2 under control, now you try 3. You want to do 3. I am not going to wake up tomorrow and run a marathon at all. It's true. I was at work, and there was this big meeting with all the big wigs and all the people, and they're doing the corporate politics stuff that I don't care about. And all I know is we were on a break, and it was lunch break, and I wanted some food. And they were sort of congregated by the door talking about, oh, next week I'm running a half marathon, and oh, in 2 months I'm running my second marathon, and oh, and there was sort of this silence as I was just trying to sneak my way out. They all looked at me. I said, don't look at me. I don't even bother running to my car if it's raining. I'll walk through the rain. I don't care. I'm not running. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and run a marathon. It's just not going to happen. I could wake up tomorrow and maybe run a block. Right? If my goal was to run a marathon, maybe in a couple of weeks I could run 2 blocks, maybe whatever. I could run, 4 blocks after that. I would build that up, right? Now, once I'm at the point when I'm practicing to run the marathon, once I get to that point, should I stop right there? Okay, I did it. I can now run 22 minutes or 22 months. No! You keep pushing on. You keep practicing, you keep it up. You hold up the practice that got you to the point that was successful. If 7's good, then yes, 8. You don't know what disaster may come across the land. I think we just experienced that ourselves. You don't know what disaster is going to come across the land. The idea here is stretch yourself a little bit. Diversify. Stretch yourself a little bit. A little bit. I didn't say invest all your money in a whatever, property, retail, something. I don't know. No. Just a little bit. Stretch yourself. I don't care again if it's cash or tomatoes or luck. Stretch yourself a little bit. Diversify. If clouds are full of water, it says in verse 3, they pour rain on the earth, whether a tree falls to the south or to the north. In the place where it falls, there it will be. Whoever watches the wind will not plant, and whoever looks up at the clouds will not reap. There's a lot of ways to tear this apart. But let's not look too close here. Sometimes you get too close, you lose the point, you lose your focus. Let's take a step back and make sure the point here really is let's not look too close here. Okay? Don't wait for the signs. Don't wait for your lucky number. Don't. Take the right next step. Just go. Just go. Go. Take it. Do it. What's the right next thing to do? Do it. Stop waiting. The tree falls to the north, to the south, the wind's blowing, the rain's coming. Just go. I ride a motorcycle. Who's seen my motorcycle? Yeah, baby. I like that bike a lot. I love riding. I really do. I don't know if it's just the motion thing or if it's the bike thing or whatever. I just love the ride. People who ride really don't like getting wet or when it rains, right? Because you get to your destination. If you think a leather jacket's heavy, wait till you wearing a leather jacket that's been rained on for the last 45 minutes, and that thing drags like it's 120 pounds. If you ride a motorcycle, you don't like getting wet. If I wanted to stay dry, and I live in Western Pennsylvania, and I ride a motorcycle, I might have 10 days every year where I can guarantee go out on that bike and not get wet. Right? You look at the weather forecast, and maybe it's 20% or 40% or whatever. You got to take the shot. You don't know what's going to happen for sure. Get on a bike and ride. You might get wet. Guess what? That happens. You think you're above reproach? You think it's impossible for you to make a mistake? Stop being panicked about making a mistake. You're going to. It's going to happen. It's okay. Measure the odds. Take the next right step. You might get rained on. You might not. Tell you something else. If the hurricane's coming and it's telling me that it's going to rain for 4 days, I also don't get on the bike. That would be dumb. That's not a risk worth taking, right? I mean, if it's obvious, don't do it. But stop waiting for your lucky number to show up. Just stop it. To summarize so far, it is give more, diversify, and stop waiting for the signs to tell you to do the obvious right next thing. Just go, just run. As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. He made the air you're breathing right now. Well, I struggled here this week. I don't think you are going to preach if you don't struggle a little bit. You're not trying hard enough, right? I struggled here a little bit because nowadays, well, we kind of do know the path of the wind. The technology we have sets up that it kind of shows that. And nowadays, to be honest, we kind of know how the body's, we have pictures of it. We know the 2 to 4 cells. We know we kind of know nowadays, kind of. So let's take the elephant out of the room. What does this illustrate for us is a couple of really, really important things. Number one, when you're reading the Bible and interpreting it, you have to know who the writer is, what's the point of the letter, and who they're writing to is the audience. Why is he saying this to them? It's an important part when you're reading the Bible. The writer of this passage was speaking to people who obviously did not know the path of the wind or how the body was formed in the mother's womb. At that time, how could they possibly have known that? The point of this passage is not the exact meaning of the metaphor that they're using. The point of the passage is you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. You will not understand why God does most things. Well, he's God. I want to go back here to the verse. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed. Let's just sub in our own metaphors here. Because you can. It's just a metaphor. Let's try one like, as you cannot guess where your wife actually wants to go for dinner. Yeah, right? Oh, as ladies, as we cannot grasp how our husbands could possibly actually be thinking nothing. There's some married people chuckling around there. If you, as a guy, I've sat in the TV and my wife says, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Nothing." I was actually thinking nothing at that moment. There was no thought. My wife can't comprehend the idea of just being no thoughts happening at that moment in my life. Those are metaphors. As a woman may never be able to understand, as my wife may never be able to understand that about me, so I may never be able to understand where she actually wants to go eat dinner. In that way, I will never understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Do we understand the metaphors now? Are you kind of with me? It's a metaphor. And it's who the guy was writing to. Let me do one more for you. This sign. To my grandfather, this meant victory. Does anybody in the room remember when this meant victory? World War II. Victory. This was the peace. Yeah. To my father, thank you, Bill. Man, he was there for it too. My father would have thought that this meant peace. Right? From Vietnam era. Hey, Gracie, what's this mean? Close enough. Deuces, which means I'm out of here. Today, that means peace. See? Peace, peace, out. Right? I can't tell you what it means in England. The point is, those terms and that symbology there morph through time. The same way those metaphors that we just read made sense to those people at that time, but this might mean peace, or this might mean victory, or this might mean deuces, or this might mean, okay? One more. Verse 6. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle. For you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. Does this sound familiar to the last verse ago, 2 verses ago? It's saying, you don't know, pull the trigger. Go get on the bike. Go ride. Do your thing. Do the next right thing. You don't know which one's going to do well if both of them or neither of them or one or the other. I can't believe that I put this next slide in, because this is the one you guys are all going to remember. This message means who wants to start singing it? Go ahead, sing it. Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Swimming, 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 swimming. Just keep swimming. That's all it's saying. Just keep swimming, man. Just keep going. You don't know what's going to be successful. You don't. It might be this one, or it might be that one, or it might be, here's what's never going to happen. You're never going to sit there and do nothing and get everything done. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. I've been singing that all week since I figured that out. Try having that one lodged in your brain when you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night. You're trying to sleep at night and stare at the ceiling and you're like, just keep swimming. Let's review one. Don't hold on to it. It's going to lose its value. 2, give a little more. Stretch yourself. 3, don't wait for the obvious signs. 4, you won't understand why God does most things. You love him. He loves you. Guys, trust him. And 5, like Dory said, just keep swimming. Now, I want us to go all the way back to the beginning, and we're going to insert the word love into every one of those points. Don't hold on to your love. It will lose its value. Give more love. Stretch yourself. Don't wait for the signs. Just love now. You won't understand why God loves you. Don't wait to figure it out. Just move ahead. And all day, every day, just keep loving. Just keep loving. Ecclesiastes, the good life. You want to know what the trick is to the good life? Love. I'm going to read this, and I'm going to dismiss you guys. I'm just going to read it. If I am becoming more like Jesus, then my love for other people, especially other people who are not like me, my love will be growing. If I am becoming more like Jesus, then my love will be growing, especially my love for other people. Inversely, if my love for others, especially for people who are not like me, is not growing, then I am not becoming more like Jesus. Try it again. If my love isn't growing, I'm not becoming more like Jesus. And in the world we're living in today, if your love for other people, especially the ones who disagree with you, if your love for them isn't growing, you're not becoming more like Jesus. Don't hold on to your love. Don't do it. Give it to people who don't deserve it, but don't hold on to it. It's better to give it to somebody who doesn't deserve it than to watch it become nothing. Give a little bit more love and stretch yourself. Don't wait for the signs. Just love now. You're never going to understand why God loves you like that. Just trust him and love him back and move on. And all day, every day, just keep loving.
Amen.
Let's stand here.